Welcome to the InsideLBI podcast, where we are here to discuss the experiences, insights, and knowledge of all things LBI. We are joined today by Austin Scwherzel, who for the past 6 years has been an integral part of Viking Village, overseeing the incoming products to the docks and ensuring accurate reporting to the federal government. Growing up in North Beach, Austin's passion for the sea runs deep, and he has developed strong relationships with Viking Village's federal and state partners. But Austin's commitment doesn't stop there. He actively participates in cooperative management and research programs, working tirelessly to promote sustainable practices and the well-being of the local ecosystem. Through his work, he strives to put a face behind the seafood that millions of consumers enjoy, highlighting the hard work of the hundreds of commercial fishermen out of Viking Village. To amplify this message, Austin collaborates with talented photographers such as my own cousin, actually, Britton Spark, and manages Viking Village's social media accounts, creating an informative website for customers and consumers alike. His efforts have not gone unnoticed, gaining recognition from notable publications like National Fisherman, Along the Keel podcast, as well as local and national news sources. Join us as we dive into Austin's journey, uncovering the challenges and triumphs he faced in his mission to bring awareness to the commercial fishing industry in Barnegat Light. Get ready to be inspired by this extraordinary advocate for sustainable seafood and local communities. Welcome, Austin.
Thanks for having me.
Can you provide some insight into the rich history and heritage of Viking Village and how it has evolved over time to become a significant landmark for both locals and tourists interested in the commercial fishing industry?
Sure. So we're about 100 years deep in history at the dock that we call Viking Village today. Started in the 1920s, first generation Norwegian fishermen settled in Barnegat Light, and obviously fishing in much smaller boats than what the current commercial fishing scene is today. They were lobster fishing, so that was a lobster co-op in the 20s, known as the Independent Fish Company. If you go down to Viking Village and go into the shops today, those were all fish shacks back in the 20s, and we're still holding on to them. They might be looking a little rough, but that's the original. And we are truly evolving, yet kind of being stuck in that time of where our heritage comes from, which I know means a lot to me as a Scandinavian, and a lot of other of our founders, have Scandic backgrounds. So I think that's neat, and do pride myself on that. But furthermore, that was a lobster co-op in the 20s, and that did flourish for quite a while. And then the lobsters became scarce. Obviously, no sustainable fishery, federal management plans being in place back then. That's kind of a more of the last few decades where we've really seen that evolve to what it is today. So once the lobsters moved off, they found ways to modify their lobster pots to catch black sea bass. And that was the main fishery of the dock in Barnegat Light up until the late 50s. And around that time, few different owners. The name did change to Viking Village before the current owners purchased it, and John Larson and Louis Puskas purchased Viking Village back in the late 60s. And the reason they purchased it is because they needed a place to pack out their tile fish. So their boats were at the 6th Street dock, the Myers dock back then. There was a lot of charter boats, had boats down there, and it was just kind of getting too busy for them to bring in a big catch. So they kind of needed their own dock for offload of their golden tile fish. So these two guys pioneered the golden tile fish fishery in the Mid-Atlantic. I mean, there really might not be the fishery that we know today without these two gentlemen. So that fishery is what truly established Viking Village and Barnegat Light and put Barnegat Light on the map in the 70s as a major producer, commercial seafood producer. Those two gentlemen and their hard work couldn't be thanked enough by the couple hundred people who rely on Viking Village to make a living, because they really were major players in what we see today as far as protecting our fish for the U.S. fleet, keeping international boats, well past where we're fishing outside of the exclusive line, and to kind of keep the timeline moving along. 70s and the 80s, major fishing going on. Gill netters started getting more involved. Um, some tuna and swordfish trips, which really developed into a major fishery into the 80s and 90s. And, all these little fisheries that became major complementary fisheries for us started to develop over time throughout these next coming decades. So that kind of brings us to today. We have a variety of fisheries that we rely on to produce and to sell. And those fisheries include Atlantic sea scallops, which is our main production. We have tuna and swordfish, tilefish, monkfish and skates, dogfish, summer flounder. Those are our staple fisheries. We obviously see some other fish coming in.
Two follow-up questions. You said that uh, it started that the Puskas and Larson got involved in the late '60s, so they weren't like the founders.
Believe it or not of the independent fish dock, but John Larson's father and uncle were some of those first
Okay,
generation Norwegian settlers
okay,
who started fishing down there.
okay.
So this is something that he grew up in.
So the Larsons do go back before the '60s.
Sure.
John, who's passed away a good 7, 8, 10 years, I think,
Yes.
and I guess his son Kirk is in charge now. And I was curious to also hear you say that you have a Scandinavian heritage, and did that um, make you gravitate to the Viking Village and the business, or
I can't say that it did. It's kind of
it
more of
didn't
an
hurt? Huh?
added bonus. I was one of those people who grew up believing one thing and then did the ancestry DNA testing and was pleasantly surprised by my Danish and Swedish heritage. So I find it a bonus at this
So
point.
you're in the right place, is what I
Yes.
say.
A Viking at heart.
I remember when we went to Ireland the first time, and we saw my grandparents' house, which was on a place called the Ballyhige Bay, which is huge. And my son said, "Well, it's no wonder we're drawn to the ocean. They all came from the ocean, so I mean, the ocean's right there." But yeah, so we kind of wind up where you're supposed to be, kind of thing, right?
It feels as if, and that's I do love what I do. Do I know it all? No. Am I learning every day? Absolutely. But if there's one thing I am committed to as one of the very much younger faces down at the dock is keeping this way of life and that business intact. I know it's not going to come down on me, but I am certainly signed up to be there.
You'll be doing your part, I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
So tell us a little bit how does the fish get from, I don't want to say from the ocean to the table, but there's a process that gets it off the boats to market, and there's a couple of interim steps from getting it to the restaurants, and
Sure.
Especially the scallop. I think a lot of people would like to know, that it shows up as this beautiful seared medallion,
Yes.
but it doesn't start that way. And I don't think a lot of people understand how it's harvested and where do all the shells go. And, so
and what are I don't even know if I know what a scallop shell looks like. My daughter, we played golf with a woman from Surety Title yesterday, and my daughter works for Surety. They went to a restaurant up in Summit, and on the menu they had Viking Village scallops. So they didn't just have Barnegat Bay scallops. They were drilled down to your dock. So how did it get on their plate from your dock, or from, as Mike said, from the ocean?
So I guess kind of just to set the scene, most of our scallop vessels are limited access, full time permitted vessels. There's a 300 something permits in the United States. That number will not change. There's no new ones. They are very expensive, and the vessels that are participating in this fishery are typically steel vessels ranging from 60 to 120 foot. There's the full-time boats are allowed 2 dredges, typically carry 7 fishermen. Part-time boats are single dredge, typically carry 5 fishermen. And then there's the limited access general category fishery, what we call day boat scalloping. And that is typically 3 fishermen on the pretty much the same vessel setup, 1 or 2 dredges, and they're allowed to go out for 600 pounds. So the full time and part time boats, what they're allowed to catch changes year to year. So I'll kind of preface that
Regulated by the government.
regulated by the federal government. So if you were a boat or a scallop fisherman at Viking Village, you'd pretty much get a call from your captain and say, "This is our date. We're going out. We're doing this trip. We're going to be gone for so many days. I want you at the dock, on Tuesday. We're taking on 15 tons of ice. So pick a couple guys to go grocery shopping and ice up the boat, make sure they have the provisions, and they're off to sea." So right now, some boats are fishing, 100 miles offshore, away, just under Long Island, and our closed area trips are all off of Georges Banks and, off of Nantucket, and it's about a 40-hour steam. So you're you're doing some traveling at the moment. Most of the scallops right out front are kind of just waiting to spawn again, more or less. It's very cyclical, and there's a closed area right out front that's called the New York Bight that is completely closed at the moment, as the federal scallop fishery is a rotational closed area fishery, meaning, in the name of sustainability, we're mapping out areas for fishing practices from the Virginia up to the northern edge, the Canadian line. And when the stock becomes depleted or the biomass in that area becomes to a point where it's probably not fishable for the entire fleet, that's going to close and stay closed until it's ready to fish again.
And how long can that take?
Uh, it could take a long time. It could take 7, 8 years sometimes.
Wow. And did you say it takes 40 hours to get to those spots to fish?
Where our boats are fishing in the closed area this year, 2023, yeah, it's about a 40-hour steam from Barnegat Light. So the dredges, once they're in the fishing grounds and they're settled in, the dredges are in the water towing, and
And they tow the bottom, obviously, right?
yes,
The mollusks on the bottom.
towing the ocean floor. And these dredges have developed. There's 4-inch rings, twine mesh, to let other species escape the bag
Okay.
that the scallops are going in. And yeah, they fill up. They Once they're full, they come up on deck. They get dumped right on deck. Every shell that hits that deck is the responsibility of the guys on board to they put them in bushels. They're picking the pile is what it's called. And
So those big orange laundry baskets, they're just shoveling
Yep.
shoveling shells into these baskets, and then where do they go?
baskets, milk crates, they load them up, and then they have a system that they're dumping these baskets into these big tubs in their cutting room on the boat, and it's cutting away. They're cutting the adductor muscle. That's what we know the scallop to be. I mean, the scallop is a pretty developed animal. It's pretty neat if you ever look at the anatomy of one. And but all we're harvesting is the scallop adductor muscle, and that's the scallops that we've grown to love and enjoy. And they are sorting them by size. So how many scallops make up a pound? The sizes are U10 under 10 per pound, U12 under 12 per pound, 10 to 20 per pound, 20, 30 per pound, and so on. They're shucking away, a couple different watches, meaning different shifts, and at the end they bag up, and those bags get very carefully put away on ice in the fish hold. And at the end of their trip, they're steaming back home to Barnegat Light. We'll be there to greet them and pack them out. About 4 bags go in a bucket at a time onto a table where they are very meticulously examined, for quality control and just we're counting them, make sure they're true to their size and that there's no quality concerns. And we pack them out typically, you know, from the beginning to the end or the end to the beginning of the trip and just so we kind of know what's the freshest product and versus maybe what's the stuff from the beginning of their trip that has maybe already seen a few days of its shelf life because if you take care of seafood and keep it cold and it's caught and taken care of as soon as it's on the boat, seafood can last a little while. So our boats do a fantastic job keeping quality in mind. And that has a lot of thanks to do to my boss, Ernie Panasek, who has given these boats probably a lot of crap over the years, the few decades he's been there, because he expects the top product because that's what Viking Village prides itself on is its quality and freshness. So we take all the scallop bags off from the boat. We're buying them from this boat. We are responsible for paying this boat
So
for the product.
as the receiving manager, you are acting as the middleman between the boat and the consumer or the wholesaler.
I'm more so responsible for making sure that what they brought in is accurately recorded.
Mhm.
This is expensive stuff. Um, so we want our final weight down pat, all the federal reporting that the boat needs to do, make sure that the boat gets it done. They share that information with me for my side of the things. So the feds will look at both what the boat's reporting and what I'm reporting, so it
Okay.
matches. And past that point, uh, I'm responsible for the back end of it on say on the computer, monitoring, making sure that all of our sales are being recorded properly and the inventory is accurate and so on and so forth. But once those scallops are off the boat, it's sell on. Sell, sell, sell. And we have customers all over the US. Typically this day and age, our product does all stay in the US. Um,
Are there any major chains that you can find a Barnegat Light Sea Scallop at,
no major chains.
or a Viking Village Sea Scallop?
We definitely have customers who work with some major chains. Between scallop, stylefish, monkfish, fluke. I mean, we it's not that we're not getting our product there. It's just maybe more so through the means that a much bigger outfit who isn't worried about giving a home to 30 plus boats and making sure that all of our complementary fisheries are we're trying to do is get our product out at the best price possible and do what's best for the boat.
Of course. I guess for the people listening out there, can you buy it more or less right off the boat,
uh
or
Unfortunately,
close?
yeah, close. The closest you're gonna get is probably Cassidy's down at Viking Village, and but any of our local seafood markets on Long Beach Island do source their scallops and a lot of their seafood product from us or a distributor who buys from us.
Hmm.
Um, but no, in the state of New Jersey, if you were visiting Viking Village in the morning, grabbed your morning coffee and saw that there was a boatload of scallops, unless if you had a federal dealer's permit, you are not buying any seafood off that boat.
Nope.
So you as Viking Village buy the scallops from the boat,
Yes, we
and
are.
then you sell it to the distributors and the restaurants and the wholesalers, retailers.
Right.
Okay.
And that network past us is just so expansive. We have a lot of amazing customers and typically, we're selling all day. We will do special packaging for some of these guys, charge them a little extra to give them a truly perfect product, all hand sorted stuff or hand picked fish or this, that, the other thing. And we have a variety of customers and with a variety of wishes, and we do our best to fulfill these wishes. And by the end of the day, there's an 18-wheeler arriving at the dock, ready to take all our orders out to market. And that truck is going to typically make 3 or 4 stops in New York City, and from those different places, they will get pushed out all over the country, or people in North Jersey, New York City, the New Fulton Fish Market, they're just picking it up right then and there and bringing it back to their processing facilities.
So can I go see a scallop boat or?
Sure, yeah. We're a friendly group of guys, and a lot of what my emphasis and Britain's emphasis has been is to put a face behind your seafood. So if you ever wanted to come on down and see the boats unloading and say, hey, what'd you catch today and how'd you do it? And you'll not only learn something, you'll leave having more respect for a commercial fisherman than you did when you arrived. We are dead set on continually welcoming and educating visitors. And we have, for quite a long time, had Friday morning dock tours running in the summer. So first Friday in July till the last Friday and before Labor Day, we put on an hour to an hour and a half dock tour, which goes over all of our fisheries. Sometimes you catch a boat packing out. You get a good understanding of what the different boats are down in Viking Village. What the fishing gear is for specific fisheries, and it's a wealth of knowledge. It's a history lesson, and we're proud to be a part of this island, and we feel like a lot of the island doesn't really see us down there when we're such a big industry. So
One of the biggest next to real estate.
I
Probably
was gonna
probably
say, I
the
think
biggest.
For ballpark figures, how many pounds of seafood do you think that Viking Village exports on a yearly basis?
well, cells. I think we're producing anywhere from, we're losing some fish stock, s- like no more bluefish, no more croakers. Those were major 1 million pound plus per year, production fisheries. But at this point, we're looking at anywhere from about 3 to 5 million pounds of fresh seafood produced a year.
That is pretty incredible.
And what else is there to do or see at Viking Village?
Uh, well, there's, like I mentioned before, these old fishing shacks that have been transformed into shops. There is quite a few shops at Viking Village. There's some boutiques. There's Viking Outfitters where you can get your fishing gear, both commercial and recreational. How you brewing? Uh, Best coffee on the island.
Everywhere we go, how you brewing? Dan
Oh,
Malay
Yep,
just keeps
Dan
Yep.
Malay's everywhere.
showing up on podcasts left and
That's
right.
Also, there's a fresh produce stand
Yep, French
right there.
produce is down there. Cassidy's Viking Village Fish Market. Rob
So-
Robinson and his sons are doing an amazing job still to this day. They just have the freshest seafood, and they're putting a lot out all over the island, and they do a great job. So if you ever want something like right off the boat, you want to go see the Robinsons down at Cassidy's.
And be sure to grab your commemorative T-shirt for the year as well. Very cool logo, also designed by Britton Spark.
Yes.
And is Off the Hook still there?
Off the Hook still is there. Yep.
Under new management,
Yep.
but still doing weekly live music and the freshest around seafood takeout.
Yes.
And is the anchor still the Sea Wife by the
Yep.
mayor's wife,
Yep.
Pam Larson? Our
Pam
friend- our big
Larson
friend Pam
does
Larson.
an amazing job with her store, and she also, with the help of her daughter-in-law, does an amazing job putting on different antique and arts and craft shows down at Viking Village. That schedule can be found at vikingshows.com, and the first one is going to kick off this Sunday, which is the 28th. I know the listeners probably won't hear that, but that's the first one.
We'll try and get it out by
And she does that all the way through Labor Day, and even up until Christmas. Has a nice little Christmas show.
So
They
really
bring
great.
Santa in. I mean, there's a great sense of community for both creators, kind of coexisting with a very busy commercial fishing dock.
And if you're looking to do some fishing yourself, there's plenty of charter boats all along the dock right next to Viking
Yep,
Village. So
we
you
have-
can find yourself a weekend plan to get out for a few hours and hunt down what? Are they catching bluefish? Are they catching striped bass? What are they? Probably
they're-
not striped
Right
bass.
now, I think they are targeting black sea bass, and Miss Barnegat Light started today.
Okay. Well, there you have
So,
it.
yeah.
So plans going forward, get out there, catch some fish.
I think we covered everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that
Well,
pretty-
it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure meeting you, and certainly one of the most informative podcasts we've had so far.
absolutely.
And
And
we appreciate your time, and give all our friends at Viking Village a big hello from us at Beach House Realty.
Sure
Yep.
will.
And where will we see you again, Mike?
well, you'll see me at the beach or in the boatyard. We'll see Austin at the docks.
See you at the beach.
We'll see you at the beach.
All right.